Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to the forum and allowing us to answer your questions. I'm proud of my judicial record and would like you to consider it along with my opponent's judicial record. He won't discuss my record as a judge. He'd rather talk about my dead 12-year-old dog who had cancer that I brought to work a couple of times during treatments at the juvenile center, where I left her in chambers for a short period of time. She wasn't out in the public and nothing occurred. He'd rather talk about a traffic stop in Oconomowoc several years ago where I was a passenger in a vehicle where the driver was pulled over for speeding in a 15-mile-per-hour zone. He was not stopped for drunk driving and he wasn't drunk. I wasn't driving and never offered to drive. I never said I was a judge and didn't obstruct the officer. It resulted in a speeding ticket. I have 10 years as an assistant district attorney for Waukesha County prosecuting criminal cases. My opponent hasn't prosecuted a single criminal case. He touts his unusual support by law enforcement, but never mentions that his brother is a retired lieutenant with the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. He hasn't actually worked with the DAs and sheriffs in other counties. I am the tough, conservative law and order candidate. My opponent, 38% of the time, has put 5-time drunk drivers back on the streets, while 100% of the time I found it appropriate to put 5-time drunk drivers in prison. My opponent speaks at length about his civil experience, yet when given the simplistic task of filing nomination papers, he filed them illegally. More disturbing is the fact that when given the chance to correct them, he refused to do so and found that it was simply too much trouble to do so, even if he could have been kicked off the ballot. My opponent is well liked by the local Liberal Defense Bar, as evidenced by the anonymous poll. The Liberal Defense Bar substitutes on me routinely in hopes of finding a more lenient judge like my opponent. The Liberal Defense Bar doesn't want a conservative judge on the Court of Appeals, so they've been financing my opponent's campaign to get a more liberal and lenient judge on the Court of Appeals who is beholden to them. My opponent continues to wage personal attacks and sling mud to avoid talking about our judicial records. I'm proud of my judicial record, and I question his decisions in important cases like putting child molesters and repeat drunk drivers on probation and back on the streets. Besides putting 5-time drunk drivers back into the community, he found it appropriate to put a school bus driver convicted of multiple counts of possessing hardcore, vile, and disgusting child pornography back on the streets into the community with no jail, no prison time, despite the district attorney's pleas to lock him up. I have the support of Scott Walker, Tommy Thompson, Margaret Farrell, Chief Judge Mac Davis, Judge Koshnick, senators, representatives, and other conservatives all around the state. Again, judges should not make the laws, so I won't legislate from the bench or condone judicial activism. I will strictly interpret the Constitution and I won't impose my own opinions and philosophies to my decisions. I will continue to make the tough decisions, and I pledge to apply the strict constitutional and legal interpretation coupled with strong conservative values and common sense to all my decisions as an appellate judge. I would sincerely appreciate your vote this Tuesday.